Welcome, everyone. I'm Chari Elam with the Bee Supply. I'm the editor, they tell me, and content director. And what else am I? Over some educational stuff for the Bee Supply, and I'm thrilled to do that. But I have a very, very special guest today. Mr. Ed is here. Mr. Ed, right there with me in my office.
Oh, Mr. Ed here.
Mr. Ed, Jeff Horchoff. Such a pleasure to have you, Mr. Ed. How are
Thank
you?
you so much, Chari, for asking me to join you this morning.
Absolutely. Well, this was a hope of mine for a long time. So I'm thrilled that you're here. So I'm going to pretend like that not everyone knows who you are, but I know they do.
That's good because a lot of people don't.
Well, I don't know, 137,000 people know who you are and subscribe to your YouTube channel.
That's just a number. That just because you have that number, that doesn't mean nothing.
Okay, well, you just keep telling yourself that, but the impact that you have made, I think and I want you to tell a little bit about yourself, but I think that the impact that you have made on the beekeeping world has been wonderful. And whether you give yourself credit or not, you're just a super special, gleeful person, faith-filled, gleeful person, and that makes you infectious. And people love to listen. So having said that.
Okay, now I'm not going to be able to walk out that door if you keep saying more good.
and I'll tell everybody, I made you turn the camera so I could see your face better, but he had this beautiful picture. Yeah, it was the other side, but your face was shut there. Oh, see, isn't that awesome? I know, but it's the light. We just need that somewhere halfway in between. There you go. It was just great that you accepted, but I want you to tell everybody a little bit, just, give us a few minutes of what's your background and how did you end up in bees?
All right, I'll try. So it all began in 1978 when I moved from New Orleans to the North Shore here in Covington area. And it was at that point I got my first bees. I bought, it was package bees that I got. And my span of keeping bees over this time, like most beekeepers, it ebbs and flows. It goes up and down. You got them, you don't have them, you got them, you don't. And that was how it really went along for 25 years. And finally, in around 2004, something like that, I actually started going to bee club meetings. And it was at that point where I said, man, there's something to keeping bees other than just having bees in your yard. And I started listening a little bit. But like everybody else who just started, you sit in the back and you're just like afraid even to look up because you don't know anything. And these people are just like, blah, 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 all about bees. And you're like, what? It's just like you're overwhelmed. And that's really how I was until I got one guy, Julian Lane, who broke off from that club and started his own club. He kind of, for whatever reason, I don't know, Julian took a liking to me and he became my mentor. And he actually taught me about the science of bees. More specifically, he taught me about splitting hives and how to grow bees. Now that's a game changer. Once you can learn that part, and it opens up all kinds of doors. But so I learned that, but at the same time, I also retired from my job at the post office and I began volunteering at the Abbey here in Covington. And that volunteering was going on for several years until one day back in, it was about 2011 or 2010, one of the monks asked me if I would help him keep bees for the monks. And so at that time, I didn't have any bees. My last hives had been stolen. So I said, sure, we'll do it. And so I started with him. We got 3 package bees. And then about 3 months after that, he left. So he didn't want to be a monk.
Your
So I
joint
said,
venture was now a you venture.
right. So that's what it was, because monks, there's always been a beekeeper here at the Abbey as a hobby, that there's always a few hives. And that's all this monk wanted to do. I never have been able just to think this like small. I always like thinking bigger. And so what happened was, when he decided to leave, I said, well, I'm gonna do something with this. So we grew it up to about 30 hives. And then when the flood of 2016 hit and it wiped everything out, it was at that point that my whole world changed. And I said, man, we're going to get serious with this program. And we developed a program. So, and I talk about this all in my talks.
Yeah, you do. And that's, I think that that event for you is kind of, you can paint a different picture for every beekeeper that's got the longevity behind them, but you made the decision to keep going forward. There's so many new beekeepers, and a lot of our audience is yours and ours as well. The Bee Supplies Monthly Magazine is new beekeepers, and we that encouragement that where you said, oh, I mean, you didn't go all is lost. You said, okay, we got to do bigger, we got to do better, got to do it differently. We're gonna, and I think that you spread these out, right? So when you rebuilt, you put them in different locations.
Right.
To
We've
that
got
same.
about a 15-mile radius from the Abbey that we spread out on now.
And that's great, because that gives you the opportunity not only to get honey from different places, because I love that. And but it also is hedging your losses. If one bee yard tanks, then you've got this other one to help feed back that bee yard.
And Chari, you said that one of the biggest obstacles that any beginner beekeeper has to overcome is the dealing with setbacks. That's part of life in general, but specifically with bees, because whether they do everything perfect, bees will still die. It's just the nature of bees. And it's not always the beekeeper's fault. It's just genetics and, insects, there's other factors that are outside of our control that affect bees. And so when we are challenged by these challenges, that we don't just give up. And what is really important, I feel, in the having a longevity practice of beekeeping is you have to keep the newness of what you're doing alive. That's the challenge of life, keeping what you do every day of your life new so that you keep on doing it. And for me, it always relates and goes back to God, my relation with God. And so in that daily ongoing journey of going down that path to God, we stumble, we fall, but we never stop getting up and going. And it's the same agenda with beekeeping. Just because you hit a roadblock, it doesn't mean we throw in the chips. Because for me personally, I see God in bees, and particularly with my relation with the monks here at the Abbey, the comparison of bees and monks, they share a lot of similarities. And I encourage all new beekeepers, that's what you need to find something, some connection with the bees to your personal life. Because when you make it personal, it's going to stick with you, because when it's personal, you care, it matters to you. And so regardless of the hiccups, you're going to keep on doing it. So
That's so great. That's so great. Couldn't have said it better myself. Obviously, it was that's poignant. and don't lose your joy in it. You know, if it matters, their survivability matters, and you really and truly invest your time and yourself into them surviving. There's nothing but great that comes out of it. Truly, you don't take a down as a down. It's just like, okay.
Because there's so many facets of
Mhm.
keeping bees, and that's a good thing and a bad thing to be a new beekeeper, because you can easily become overwhelmed by the vastness of it. But it's just like walking. It's just a little step, little step, little step. And eventually things just fall in place naturally, because it is natural. And so our understanding of how to keep bees, there's definitely part of that. You do need to have some general knowledge and practice of keeping bees, but you don't have to be an expert right away. It's a learning process, and that we don't become discouraged in that learning curve, that we keep on going. And the newness of something right around the corner, that unexpected thing, that's, for me, is one of the things that keeps me going. It's like, there's always going to be a challenge, and and I look forward to the challenges, because I grow as a person from these challenges. And that when I grow as a person, man, everything around me becomes better. So it's beekeeping, but it's a way of life, like the Dirt Rooster says. You know, it's more
Yes.
than it's a way of life.
Well, it's you truly can just involve yourself to the point where it is life. It can be life with it can, well, kind of has ended up as our lives. We talk bees every day, right? You said a couple of things that I want to go back on. I always try to embellish things I think are great. And you had a mentor, and you talked about a bee club, and you talked about the aha moment. You didn't give it that word, but that's my word. So you told your story about the bee club. You might as well put Chari and James on that as well, because we walked in, and first of all, we chuckled that there was such a thing as a bee club. I mean, there's a bee club. People meet to talk about bees. You're kidding, right? And being very intimidated by that. But I think that you'll agree, we can't stress enough the importance of that camaraderie that a bee club gives, and the resource that bee club, it can be a host of mentors that are involved in that bee club, and sticking with that in one aspect or another, however long you need to, but giving it the amount of time to learn from your mistakes. I really try that hard, because, I think that when we see a repeat of issues with bees, it's because we're not really writing down what those mistakes we made were, because we all know in retrospect, and try to not repeat them, but to find a mentor or mentor group in a club and stick with that, and they'll be the greatest family. Good influence. Most places, most clubs are super influences. I think you agree with that, right?
Oh, I that 100%, because a bee club should not be for a particular member or a group it's a club. And so the idea is a sharing of knowledge, particularly to new beekeepers who have a bazillion questions. You've already been through it all. You know just so much stuff, and these people know zero. And it's up to the people that know this stuff to be able to express, to show, to teach, to look, to be able to pass on that knowledge to these people, so that they can become what you are as far as in your knowledge of it. And that is, if you can find a club that is of that mentality, boy, you found a gem. And I have to say, there's 4 clubs right around here, and they all share that. It's like for our club, it's like I might be in the front of the class, but everybody is sharing and teaching, and I might just kind of like direct the stuff. But that's the beauty of it, where when you have new beekeepers with tons of questions, where they don't feel intimidated or embarrassed by their lack of knowledge, that they feel comfortable enough where they can express themselves to allow others to help them. And that is a beautiful thing, a beautiful thing.
And the joy that leadership team has is infectious, and it gives them their inspiration to keep going.
Agreed.
Yeah, and it is a displacement. We are not talking about the topics I was going to talk about, but this is great. That's okay. That's all right. This is super. It gives clubs and mentors and so forth. You perpetuate the beekeeper, you perpetuated the bees. You know, we need more beekeepers. In doing so, the bees will survive in the end, right? You know
what am I saying? I always say, and I put this in so many comments. I always say that the world needs as many beekeepers as it can get. And that is so true.
So true.
And it isn't solely for the beekeeper, it's for everybody, because we all benefit from what bees do for us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I think I will probably try to get off into an actual real topic, but we've done good. This is good. I think this helps people to know, give them a direction and know that your aha moment is coming. James and I had some really bad boo-boos in our first year, and we were even club members, but we would hear things and we would hear it and we'd get home and there was 2 of us. And if 2 people are listening, that's double the trouble. I heard it this way and he heard it this way. And that ended up being let's kill the bee is what we ended up doing.
You know, Chari, I gotta say that in learning methodology, techniques, all that stuff, there are common grounds to it. However, each person has to be able to express their what they've learned and then put it into practice. And then, yeah, they're going to make mistakes, but we learn from our mistakes, and then eventually we become our own style of beekeeping. It is not unique to one way of doing it. And that's the beauty of it, that you learn how to be your beekeeper for your bees, and you will have, you'll go a long ways.
That's so true.
I don't read books. I don't watch very much YouTube stuff because I don't have time to, but I get out there and I get my hands dirty with bees. That's what I do. And I've always been a hands-on type of person. And yeah, I make a lot of mistakes that way, but that's the best for me. That's the best way of learning.
Well, you said you don't read a lot of books. You know, our mentor, which was a super mentor, his name was Bob Raybuck. He'll always forever be our mentor. He every time we'd ask him a question, he'd say, well, bees don't write books. And I thought, that's no answer. In other words, what he was telling us was get in there and do just what you just said. Get in there, let the bees instruct you which way to go. You learn from your mistakes and you'll figure it out. So I want to ask some real questions.
Okay.
There was one.
We were talking real stuff.
We are. I just had these questions from that I wrote down. For those that didn't see it, go to the Bee Supply YouTube, and Jeff Mr. was gracious enough to be our guest speaker for the July monthly buzz webinar. So go and find that. And some of these questions I have are from that night, and I didn't want to get by without asking a couple. This one I didn't prepare you for, but I had it on here. It said, where is it? Okay, I had it. Where is it? I'm going to find it because it was so important. Here it is. Mr. Ed, I love your videos about getting bees out of buildings and strange places. I loved that. Do most of them survive, and do you feed them afterwards? So we're getting off into the cutouts and removals, which you do a lot of. So
Oh,
that
yeah.
person, they obviously follow you. So what would you say to that?
Ask the question one more time.
All right, I will. Mr. Ed, I love your videos about getting bees out of buildings and strange places. Do most of them survive? And do you feed them after you get them home?
Yes, most of them survive and go on to live. And one of the things I've learned is there's a time of year to do it to ensure that the hive is not going to die. Most of the time you want to, I'll do removals when there's a flow. If you do removals when there's a flow, you greatly enhance the chance of that hive surviving, because anytime you remove bees from structures or anything, it stresses them. And the worst thing that you can have is stressed bees. That is the all-time worst. So you stress the bees tremendously by jerking them out of some place, setting them up in another place, and now they've got to relearn that location, learn that location, and then try to make a go of it at that time. If you're not in a nectar flow, you're going to always make it harder for them. Personally, I don't feed our bees because I don't like welfare bees. They got to work. They got to do their job that they're supposed to do. So I remove bees when there's a flow. I also love removing bees when in the winter, right as they're coming out of the winter, where the least number of bees are in the hive. There's hardly any brood in there, and we're just starting up our nectar flow. So I'm removing bees at the end of our nectar flow in November and December, and then in January, when our first blooms, our maple, our willow, those start coming in, I'll start again, because it's a great time. The bees are building up. It's a natural time for them to build up. Once June hits, end of June, that's it. I'm finished. I'm not going to do any more removals because they don't do well at that point. From June, July, August, September, I'll leave it alone, because there's no flow. There's so much. There's no dearth, so there's a dearth, so there's no flow, and I'm not going to feed bees. I guess you could feed them, but since I'm not going to do that, I don't do it.
Well, and I love that, because you're letting nature be nature, and so much of that is, and Blake and I talked about that after the webinar, is that, we tend to overkeep. We can be overkeepers, not just beekeepers, but overkeepers. And I totally get that. I really love that you just leave them alone when there's not a nectar flow going on. And for those that are listening to this recorded later on, if you're in northern states, I'm in Texas, Mr. Ed is in Louisiana. We just almost don't have winter. We have very short ones, but our nectar flow, we have a fall nectar flow as well as a spring nectar flow. So that affords you the opportunity to do those removals, probably extended a lot beyond what some places can do it. Yes, when we get a call for somebody to pull something out of a home, or like the removals you do, they say, well, I want to save the bees. Well, my first statement is the bees are perfectly happy living in your house. They don't need saving. You need saving maybe, but they don't need saving. So doing it at the right time really does give them a much better opportunity. I'm so glad to hear that you abide by that, because that makes it easier for you too.
Oh, yeah, it's like I'm doing it for the bees, and so why would I do it when it's not going to be good for them? So no.
Exactly. So in that same, because I'm gonna stumble over my words here, because there's like 14 different directions I could go. You do a lot of removals. You said in the July webinar you do 60.
Yeah, about 20.
It's a lot. So
no, it's not really. It really isn't a lot.
Sounds like a lot.
Well, it's not compared to the guys that do it for a living. True. They'll do 300, 400 a year.
True. Yeah. So do you, is that a business for you? Or are you using it
Oh,
to
no,
stock
no,
bees? Stock
no,
bees for the Abbey.
I'm just trying to keep bees for the monks. And so,
Yeah.
I'll go get them. That's, but I do love doing it because
Yeah.
I think I've learned more about bees by doing removals than anything else, and particularly bee behavior. I can read bees very well. I can open up a structure, I can open up a beehive, and I know what's going on just from how many I've seen over the years. And
And
that's,
go ahead.
well, that's just another part of keeping bees. The longer you've done it, ideally, the more you should learn. And so it should become easier for you to do it. It's not, there's no reason to have envy or jealousy of somebody who can do, do it. It's like, go out there and do it yourself. Learn, do it, and you'll
Getting to know the bees is where it started to interrupt you, is getting to know the bees. And I don't think there's any better advice to a beekeeper is to get to know the bees. I remember very well, and we still do it. We would get a lawn chair and set it probably too close to our hive and just sit there and sip on a glass of sweet tea and just talk, and not, the world went away. And we were just looking at, what are the bees coming in? Which direction are they coming from? Are they coming in heavy? Coming in like they're dive bombing? That means they've got nectar. We learned more and more and more. Are their pollen baskets full? If so, what color was it? Wonder where. Then we're researching, where did that come from? Knowing the bees makes a success for removals, and also makes the success for keeping the bees, because you really do know what their needs are, even if you don't intervene, which I do. Everyone has their own method. We do intervene more than you do, and I don't know that I'm right. I don't know that we're right in doing that, but it's just our way we do it. But it's getting to know the bees and how they live, what each bee's duty is, and what you can really and truly help them more just by being able to see, oh, they've got a problem. There's a small hive beetle problem. I need to move them, or I need to, do something for the small hive beetles to help them if they can't do it for themselves. That's where my mindset goes. But knowing the bees makes a big difference. Just observation gets you there.
I have to add into that same breath, knowing the bees, you can't get to know them without going into them. But at the same time, I strongly urge people, don't go into your bees.
I know.
So it's like, well, how do you learn? So it's a fine line you have to walk.
It's a dance.
Yeah.
Right? It is. Well, it's like space. I write a lot of articles about bee to box ratio and adding space or taking space away, right? There is a fine line. You want to inspect, but don't over inspect. You want to add space, but don't add too much space. And that can be the most confusing part, I think, for new beekeepers, is where I don't understand. Well, you said to add space. I added space and wax moths moved in. Or the hive beetles took over. I was like, I did what you said. But it is really just, paying attention of that ebb and flow, because they're bugs, but they have they go big and then they kind of shrink back down. And if we can just follow that and be reactive to that, out of deep when you need to, and then if they don't continue to fill that up, it could be detrimental to not pull it back down if their health starts to decline or what. But anyway.
So the other thing too is, not only do you learn about your bees, but you should also learn about your environment where you live. Learn flow, learn about nectar flow, learn about what's blooming, what's good for bees. And so you can base your judgment of bees on what's going on in nature, what's flowering, and what they're bringing in. And if they're bringing it in, you should then be able to correlate something with how the hive is expanding or retracting. It's all part of that long process of learning about bees. I don't know a lot about bees, but I just observe. That's one of my biggest strong points is I observe, I watch. And it just doesn't necessarily have to mean that, you know, I get my hands dirty. I do, but especially I do it with cutouts. And I when I'm removing comb and I see how the hive is structured, how the comb is built, how they filling pollen and nectar, and how they rearrange everything and move it. All this stuff is just fascinating stuff about bees. This is fascinating.
And it's so, and really, all we're doing is wanting to emulate that in a box, in a hive box.
Sure.
You know, and paying very close attention to what they would do without anybody's guidance. You know, without anybody's guidance. And I've watched some of your videos about cutouts, and I love it. I could not wait to tell James about, you got that template thing, that yellow template that you cut the lobes of comb off so that you can band it into the frames. He just did a removal the other day. It was a kind of a half-tooth type thing. Actually, it was out of a log the guy had cut, and James is a good Samaritan and he does it for free. He just goes and helps them out. And I said, so Mr. Ed has this thing and he cuts it and it makes it the perfect size, as he was walking out there to rubber band in some comb. And he's like, oh, well, that's a great idea. Of course, you can't do it out of a log, but what a great idea to just, you're taking that section where they built it on their own with no instruction, and you're taking that section and you're placing it in a frame.
Oh yeah.
That is so beautiful.
I also, when I remove comb, I stack it and I try to put it back in the same
Order.
order.
Yeah, I saw that you use an ice chest.
Yes.
Very good. Anybody that's thinking about that, and I kind of agree with you, you said everybody should do that. Maybe you said it in the webinar. Everybody should try doing that, because you see the bees in their nature and their natural habitat, and then try to keep them alive in your habitat that you built for them. I think that's super cool. Gosh, we're running out of time. I can't believe it. So much I want to ask. Because it usually takes me a few
Chari, you
minutes.
can always ask me to come back.
I think I can, right?
Yes,
I know you now. We're friends now. I've seen you now on 3 occasions, so I think that qualifies us to be friends.
That's right. That's right.
And we're friends in Christ, if anything. I will say that I would love for you to do a send-off. What would you, if a new beekeeper walked up to you, and I know they do all the time because I watched you from afar at the TBA summer clinic in Conroe, Texas, people approach you. You're so approachable. And I don't know what they're asking you, but you're very eager to answer. If they walked up and said, I feel so lost. I feel so lost in what to do with my bees. I learned these things in class, and then I go back to my hive and it doesn't look anything like what they told me it was going to look like. What do you tell them? What would you tell them?
I would tell them to don't sweat the small stuff, and that you know, there's going to be good times, there's going to be bad times, and what your job as a beekeeper is, on top of keeping bees, you should be having a good time doing it. And so if it's not fun, then something has to be corrected. Because if it's not fun, you're not going to stay with it. So keep yourself renewed in the newness of the bees. That is the challenge you will always face. And so if we can make it new, constantly make it new for us, we will always be wanting to do it. And that's where we're so easily ready to give up. And I would strongly say, don't give up, keep on going, because eventually it's going to open up for you. Eventually that light's going to come on and you're going to say, whoa, look at that. And that's the first one. And then there'll be more. And it's a beautiful thing being a beekeeper.
It truly is. It truly is. The day that you go, I know the answer. I see what they're doing and I know the answer. I've seen it and I can do it. I can do this. Thank you so much, Mr. Ed.
So like, the video that I post next week, it's our honey extraction. And one of my all-time favorite things that I love doing is just standing in bees. And if you all can experience that feeling, that sensation of standing in 50,000 bees just buzzing around you without any concern of you, they just want to do what they want to do, and you just get to be there and you listen to it. That is like, that's the reason I'm a beekeeper, because I want to be in the middle of that. I want to be there. And when I experience that, it's like, so I begin the video with that and I close the video with that, because it's, for me, it's the epitome of being a beekeeper.
Like a hug from 50,000 bees. And
That's right. That's right.
it is. I've done it. I know your euphoria in that. And it is truly incredible. Everyone should place themselves protected, of course, in that situation if you can, because it is the moment of peace, and that is truly no words. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're very welcome.
I'm going to get you back.
Yeah,
we're going to do a
please
live
do.
version.
I'll love to come back, and it's always a pleasure to talk with you, friend.
Absolutely, absolutely. We'll do it live next time. How's that sound?
Oh, awesome. Great.
Okay. Thanks,
bless
Mr.
you.
Ed. We'll
You're
see you
welcome.
soon.
Bye-bye.